the SEC, always the place to be on signing day. And there was a huge focus on the SEC yesterday and a huge focus on Texas A&M. Texas A&M lands the best class in program history. I was looking at some of the numbers today. Do you realize if they didn't land another kid and you shaved all the 5 stars off of their current class, they'd still have a better class than Jimbo's ever signed there. And you kind of play around with the class calculator and you can look at all kinds of different scenarios. Well, the thing about it is they are going to land more kids. I mean, I can confidently tell you they're not done. They are already with the highest rated recruiting class in the country this year, the highest rated recruiting class in the SEC this year. They addressed a lot of needs. We talked to Jimbo Fisher at length. I'm going to play you sound in just a couple of seconds. But they address needs at quarterback. They got a lot of really good perimeter skill. Connor Wegman, Jimbo Fisher, I'm going to let him tell you over myself, thinks he's the best quarterback in the country. They've got some playmakers, the likes of which they really haven't had there. Now, keeping them on the field's been another issue, too, in terms of health. They got so many studs yesterday. I'm not even talking about defense. Defense, they totally retooled and revamped yesterday, too. But we get Jimbo Fisher on. We get notified in our ear, hey, we got Jimbo Fisher. And it was in the middle of the afternoon. Now, I wanted to get Jimbo bad, and we got him yesterday. And I wanted to ask him a couple of questions in particular, and we got him both in. I think he gave us some really good stuff. This is not coach speak from Jimbo Fisher, so I want you to listen very closely. And as he's talking, I also want you to keep in mind, what have the problems been with A&M? What have been the 1 or 2 things that when you've watched them, you've said, that's what's keeping them from winning the SEC. That's what's keeping them from being a college football playoff team. As you keep that in mind, let's roll Jimbo Fisher from yesterday. There are a lot of things that feel historic about the program, but we're watching from 50,000 feet. You're in the weeds there. You're running things every day. Do things feel different in this class? Is it that much of a shift like it maybe feels on the outside?
Well, I mean, I think people realizing what we can do, where we're going, where this game is going, what our future is here, and what A&M can present for them, not only athletically, but for life after ball education and everything else. This place is all encompassing. It has everything it needs. They're committed to winning. They're committed to doing everything. We've gotten great classes the last 3 or 4 years, and they see that we're ready to make a hump, and they want to be part of something. And you want to be the first to do something, not just another guy who does something. And this place can be very special, and I think they see it. And the guys in Texas are staying home, and then we're able to go out and cherry pick some guys across the country to come to us instead of people coming in here and getting our guys. So it's been very historic in that way, and I think hopefully that'll be the trend from here on out.
That was a loaded answer there. There's a lot of themes in the last few years in recruiting you just hit on. I wanted to go back to keeping your guys in state. Your quarterback there, Connor Wegman, our Steve Wilfong, was just talking about him and how every headline's been about Quinn Ewers and where's he headed via the transfer portal. And you guys weren't really involved in that. And it probably speaks volumes, correct me if I'm wrong, to how confident you are in the quarterback you already had in your class.
Well, those guys are all great players, but I've invested from the number one when they were the same. I think this guy's the best guy in the country. I think he can do everything you have to do. He can, more important, besides the running and the throwing, he's unbelievably competitive. He's unbelievably tough. He affects his teammates in a great way. And there wasn't a lot of Division I players on his team. And when he played, they won, period. Took them deep in the playoffs, and then if he couldn't play the game, they got beat. Now, whether they won it or not. But the way he affects his guys, his arm, his leg, he has unbelievable. I actually had him in camp. His release, his intelligence level, unbelievable learning abilities. Can run as a legit 4'6", high 4'5" guy, makes you miss, big, physical. And, there's nothing he can't do. And when you put the intangibles with the great ability, I think he's the best one in the country.
Let me ask you this. You're talking about quarterback there, and you're talking about those characteristics you always look for. I'm looking at some of the perimeter skill talent here, too. Are there things offensively you've wanted to do in your tenure there that you have not been able to do to this point that personnel like this will now allow you to do?
Oh, no doubt. You go back. I've had guys that won the Blitnikoff. We had the all-time leading receivers in the SEC. We had tons of first-round guys, a bunch of guys in Florida State. And we got banged up and bruised up. And we've had great tight ends, great backs, and the receivers have done really good. But get some guys that can get up, get the top, taking off the defense, get down, make the big plays, and really stretch the field in so many different ways. And that's what I've always done. We've been able to always run the ball, but have balance. But you got to stretch the field, those actions, and deep ball threats. And I think this class will allow us to do that when it's all said and done.
Did you catch that? See, there's this thought out there, and I am a part of this. I believe this too. There's been this thought that Texas A&M has lacked a certain explosivity in their downfield passing game. Now, partly it's Jimbo Fisher's offense, too complicated. And then the other part is, well, maybe they just don't have the athletes. Well, I wanted to ask him about it, and I did, and you just heard what he said. He said, absolutely, there's stuff I want to do that we haven't been able to do, that we will hopefully be able to do with the pieces in this class. He's not wrong He's not wrong on paper as far as we can go on signing day, because there are elements, there are pieces in this class that they have not had. You may look at it and you may say, he's been on campus a long time now. Why hasn't he already gone and gotten them? Well, partly because he may have gone and gotten one in Haynes King and he got hurt last year. So maybe that's the case. Maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe he's right. They have had some pieces that they theoretically could work with and they were banged up. He's never had a collection of talent coming in town like he's got here. He also went on to talk about the competitive character and makeup as being the critical factor they were looking for here. Because he knows, as well as anyone else out there does, when you bring in this kind of roster, you bring in that kind of talent, you also run the risk in the transfer portal era of part of that class exiting via the filter of the transfer portal if they're not immediately playing. I'll tell you something else as we move on here. That's also why it's critical for a program like A&M to recruit their home state. Alabama, ditto. Georgia, ditto. Florida, FSU, Miami, ditto. It's not that you are immune to the transfer portal if you recruit in-state players, but those in-state players have a second thought before they exit via the transfer portal, because if you got a kid playing in College Station that's from Spokane, Washington, it's nothing for them to leave in the dead of night. They'll never be back in Texas again. But if they're from Cypress, Texas, and they exit College Station, they got to go home and on every street corner be looked at as the guy who couldn't cut it down the road and came back here, and now what are you? That's not easy to deal with. I'm a big believer that there's a correlation between not suffering as much exodus via the transfer portal and recruiting your state, locking your state down. They did that to a large degree yesterday. Sark in Texas had a good day. Jimbo Fisher and A&M had a historic day. Keep an eye on that, because Denver Harris, they lead for him. Harold Perkins, they lead for him. This could end up being the highest rated class of all time. I think that if I gave you that headline about 6 months ago, I think all A&M fans would have taken it. What about Georgia? Because there are three classes, I'm about to talk about the other two, in this recruiting cycle that distance themselves from the rest of the pack. A&M was one, Georgia's another one. This defensive class is nasty, and I'm looking specifically at the versatility in this defensive class, which is something that we did not see enough of from Georgia when they were playing against Alabama. This is what I always like to do on signing day. I don't just want to read off names. I don't just want to have Jesse, I don't just want to have the production crew put up a list of names and their star rankings. You need to know about how they fit needs. Well, Georgia, when they were playing Bryce Young, they didn't have a Will Anderson or a Dallas Turner. They didn't have those singular difference-making edge rushers. They didn't have that. They had one in Adam Anderson that wasn't on the field. And so did they get guys like that? Well, not only do I think they met that need with a guy like Marvin Jones Jr., but they also still got the depth and versatility. They got a guy like Bear Alexander, who is 6'3", 325. But then they also get Mykel Williams, Hardaway High School's Mykel Williams out of Columbus, Georgia. Go Hawks. 6'5", 265. And then Marvin Jones Jr. is more 6'4", 245. They also added Jaheim Singletary, who's one of the best corners in the country. Up and down the board, all three levels of the defense, they added difference makers. It's a really good day for them there. Wide receiver is a position that I've had some of my Georgia buddies complaining about and complaining that they didn't address it. I'll say this. I will agree with you that there is a sort of a data incomplete, blinking red light at the wide receiver position right now. They're not done, is what I'm saying. You got to, in the transfer portal era, learn to look at early signing day for what it is. It's kind of one threshold, and then the second signing day, the final one, that's another threshold. But then you get through spring practice, and then you go into that second transfer portal window. Once you're through all that, then you know what your roster is going to look like. I mean, this time last year, even going into spring of last year, there were guys that ended up playing for Georgia that weren't even on the team. Wide receiver could be like that for Georgia. So don't freak out just yet. You never know, which one or two difference makers you could add. For all you know, your Jamison Williams is still out there. It's a rare exception to the rule there, but you get my point. So let's not freak out just because on December 16th, Georgia doesn't have what you want at receiver. What about Alabama? Speaking of receiver, Alabama has become infamous for having that kind of elite, just deadly perimeter skill, and they got some more of it yesterday. Nick Saban and his staff put a premium on that position and a premium on those specific characteristics and traits. Isaiah Bond, Shaz Preston, Aaron Anderson, Kobe Prentice, all of those guys are top 150 athletes / receivers. All of them are track speed guys, and so they just keep reloading. It's like a blueprint. They've got a receiver type that they like, and there are enough of them out there where the best in the business can go get multiples per class. Nick Saban got multiples. Track speed, don't have to sacrifice physicality. They're going to be very good blockers. They're not going to be on the field, and they got enough of them where You know, they can load them up and they can stack them. That's what we're looking at with Alabama. That's what a program like Georgia is trying to do. It's a lot harder than it looks to acquire that kind of talent. They got 2 top 60 offensive tackles yesterday too, and you're looking at them right there in Tyler Booker and Elijah Pritchett. Kirby Smart, I heard him talking yesterday about how he thought this was kind of a down year along the offensive line, but you're dealing with what you deal with. It's like if you're the New York Jets and you need a quarterback and you just happen to be drafting in a year where it's down at quarterback, well, what do? You probably still take a quarterback. Well, Alabama got 2 really good tackle prospects there. And again, you never know with the portal down the road what you can do. I thought they addressed what could end up being a need there. You can never have enough of those big-bodied guys. But I'll tell you what was quiet. Same way with Penn State. A 5-star quarterback in this class, Ty Simpson. Because he's been committed for a long time, you didn't talk about him a lot yesterday. We didn't talk about him. I don't even think I mentioned Ty Simpson's name yesterday on the show that we did in Fort Lauderdale, but that's only because you've sort of baked him into the class already. And maybe it's irresponsible to think that way. I think Travis Hunter showed us that. But you've already kind of baked him into the class. Ty Simpson is a stud from the state in which I sit right now, Tennessee. He's number 24 overall in the country, and he was a guy that was kind of, you know, one of those alpha recruiters, what you hope your quarterback in your class is going to be. He's a guy that committed early, stayed solid, stayed true the whole time, and then worked on other guys. So Alabama's got another top 3 class there. They also added Eli Ricks last night. I was sitting in the Fort Lauderdale airport, and I'm about to board a flight home because, as you know, I don't wait until the next morning like the rest of these suckers around here just now dragging in. I got in here at 11 last night. We went right to work, punching out the show. As I was in the terminal, I all of a sudden get the alert, Eli Ricks is done. It was a text message. Then the alerts came shortly thereafter. Eli Ricks is a massive addition for them. That is a 5-star level corner transferring from LSU. I want to confidently tell you, as confidently as I can put it, Alabama's not done with the transfer portal this cycle. That's vague enough? Yeah, I think that's vague enough. Alabama's not done in the transfer portal yet. More on Alabama and the transfer portal later in the show. What about the Florida Gators? There's been such a calm confidence around this program ever since they hired Billy Napier. Were you paying attention to Florida going into signing day? Answer, no, you were not, unless you're a Florida fan. And then all of a sudden, Shamar James, 4-star linebacker. Where's he going? Well, he's going to the University of Florida. And then Kamari Wilson, going to the University of Florida. And it's a huge deal. Now, they have a very light signing class right now. What did they sign? They didn't sign a huge class yet. That's only because the staff got in the door 5 minutes ago. And so they'll make a lot of moves down the road, too, with the transfer portal. This is a prime transfer portal candidate. I mean, this Florida Gator logo right here, that is the poster child in this particular 2021-2022 cycle for the transfer portal. USC could be like that. All the new staffs, Oklahoma, they could be like that. Well, Florida got 2 game changers yesterday, even having been in the door about 5 minutes, and it's not guys that had just been firm commitments and it's a formality on signing day. It was not that. There were big fights. I mean, Shamar James is from Mobile. It's a big fight for him. A lot of programs wanted him, and they ended up getting him. But I'm going to watch Florida really close with the portal because Billy Napier walked in, and I think some people wanted him to say, we're going to go all in immediately, and we're going to try and keep all the guys committed that we have right now. We're just going to paper the entire country with offers, and we're just going to take quantity at the expense potentially of quality in this first signing class. And he said the opposite. In fact, the more you talk to people around the program, the more you realize he could have kept some of these guys that decommitted. But he told them, straight up honest with them, I am going to reevaluate you before I tell you you have a committable offer from us. And he wanted some of them to wait to February. Guys wanted to sign on early signing day. So all's fair on both sides of that equation. You shake hands, you go your separate ways. He did not take the easy route, is the point. And I respect him for it. I think they'll ultimately be better for it. Short term, no, you look, they're ranked like 50th right now. And so if you are of the low-hanging fruit crowd, you could make fun of that. USC barely cracked the top 100 late in the day yesterday. So it could be a lot worse. They got a couple of game changers. Let's see what they do in the portal. I thought Auburn was the quietest but most important story in the SEC yesterday. Quietest but most important. They seemed to emerge out of nowhere. It was like 3:45, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and Wiltfong, as I was tossing it around the table, saying, what stands out right now? Wiltfong pulls up his phone and says, Auburn's number 11 at the moment. They were number 11, right? And I said, no, I don't know that. I pulled the computer up, sure enough, there's Auburn, number 11. Seems like 10 minutes ago they were number 50, and then 45, 44. This is a massive win for Brian Harsin and his staff. And it sort of falls right in line thematically with what they've done all season. They had an up and down season. I'm going to grant you that. It has not been a total bed of roses for Auburn this year. But remember what happened? Remember they lost to Penn State, and then they come home and they almost got beat by an FCS program, and then they benched the quarterback, and they fire the wide receivers coach, and everything seems to be in turmoil, and they played their best football. They went on the road, and they beat LSU, and I remember I said on the show emphatically that next Sunday, I said, bookmark this. It could be nothing, it could be everything. But this could have been a spot where the program imploded, or the team, the season imploded. And Brian Harsin never flinched. And that was point one. And this is another point that I want you to remember. There have been rumors about Brian Harsin on multiple fronts. Bo Nix is exiting the program. There has been some staff turnover there. There's been some flux of the roster. This could have been another point. When you're recruiting in these shark-infested waters in the SEC, and you are not in the headlines all the time for your NIL plan. Only recently have we started to even hear the letters NIL next to that AU logo. You have every reason to finish outside the top 30. And that's what I would have expected for Auburn. And instead, they finished top 15. You take all the circumstances, blind resume it. I tell you everything that's happened to that Auburn team this year and the feel and the mood around the program, and then I say, where do you think that team finishes in recruiting if you had to guess? You would have said outside the top 30. And I would have too, and we would have been wrong. There is fight. If you say nothing else about Harsin and his brief tenure at Auburn so far, there's fight there. There's a sense that there are blinders on the program. And when I say blinders, I don't mean, blind to reality. I mean blind to a lot of the external criticism. And that's a credit. That's a credit because you think you always have stuff figured out. Most of the time you don't. Brian Harsin, to me, still is the most unknown commodity of all the head coaches in the SEC West. That doesn't mean he's not going to end up panning out and being one of the best. It's so much still up in the air to me. But these things matter. The way they rebounded at times during the season matters before they ran out of gas totally. And also what they did yesterday, locking down a top 15 class, it matters. It matters. Kentucky didn't finish anywhere. Kentucky, just to touch on a couple of teams right quick, Kentucky's got the number 11 team in the country. They got the number 11 signing class in the country. We had Chianti Goodwin on, 5-star offensive tackle. 6'8", about 350, 360, down from 400. Yes, at one point, there was a 6'8", 400-pound kid walking a high school hallway somewhere. We had him on late kick last night. He actually reaffirmed his commitment on late kick, and then there were some headlines later in the night. As of this moment, Chianti Goodwin, still with Kentucky. Kentucky, the number 11 class. Mark Stoops has got to have the best job in America because he's sitting there, he's making the money he's making. They reward him when he wins 8 games a year. Everyone loves him there. He is so secure in his job that he can just overhaul the offense if he wants to. He can take chances in the transfer portal. Oh, and by the way, they're signing top 15 classes. It's when people talk about SEC bias, I look at all this, and I look at how frequently we have to talk about the SEC. If I didn't want to talk about the SEC, I still couldn't avoid it on signing day. Everyone wants to get to the end of a season, and they see these SEC programs getting benefit of the doubt, and they see them littering the bowl schedule, and they see them, getting a push, and they see them getting benefit of the doubt even in the media, and they have a problem with it. Guys, that doesn't come out of nowhere. When I'm looking on signing day and I'm seeing where the talent's going, that is baked into the public perception that gives the SEC the benefit of the doubt. This is a talent-based business. You've got to have the horses. They've got more of them. They keep getting more of them. That's why. Kentucky, you would not, if you talked about the SEC, if you're from, let's just say, Topeka, Kansas, and I said, tell me about the SEC. Kentucky wouldn't be in one of the first half dozen programs you mentioned. Kentucky finished 11th in the country yesterday. That would be among or right at the best in some of the other Power 5 conferences out there, depending on conference. That's wild. Tennessee finished 14th. That's a top 15 class. And think about how deep into the show it is. It's 7:24 right now. Think about how deep into the show we are before we've even talked about the Tennessee class. Hey, I want you to keep in mind that as some other programs out there lost their coaches, they never had to worry about it at Tennessee. There were some brief headlines about Josh Heupel. He shot him down very quickly. They've got the number 14 class in the country right now. It's becoming a place that is a lot more trendy and a lot more attractive. And as they start to really put their thumbprint on the program more and more, there's some excitement, as there should be, in Knoxville. And Josh Heupel is a guy that showed you what he could do with someone else's pieces in year one. Really, really excited to see what they're about to do when they start to get more and more of their ingredients in the kitchen there. This is also a candidate, potentially, to make some moves in the portal. So that's a look around the SEC. What a day it was. And we're only through early signing day. We still got the second signing day coming up. Transfer portal is pretty much 24/7, 365 right now. But it was a memorable day across the conference for many different reasons.